Chapter 781. Governor Zhou, what are you talking about? I will immediately turn the ship around. As Sima Yao spoke, he turned to look at the warships behind him. But instead of actually ordering them to turn around, he suddenly raised his voice and shouted, "Ignite! Kill the enemy!" Boom! With one command, all the ships brought by Sima Yao burst into fierce flames and charged straight towards the massive tower ships of the Jiangnan Navy. Witnessing this scene, Prince Qi and others were all horrified. False surrender. Sima Yao is feigning surrender. Enemy attack. Quick! Just before the fire ships crashed into them, the foremost tower ships of the Imperial Navy, Feiyun and Gai Hai, suddenly emitted spirit light, then activated the water control array, erecting arced water walls in front of them. The fire ships under Sima Yao's command crashed into these walls, extinguishing the flames instantly, and thick smoke rose as they began to disintegrate under the massive impact. If the fire cannot be ignited from inside, it is useless. But even knowing the outcome, Sima Yao had to command this way. Truly turning the ship around would mean exposing his back to the enemy and actually crashing into their own water fort. On the deck, watching the flames flare up and then extinguish, Zhou Rong laughed aloud, seeming both to praise and mock. Good plan, good plan. A skillful ruse of self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice? Prince Qi, Ling Xia, and the cultivators from Shangyun's sect looked at the chaos before them, all with lingering fears. Feign surrender? Governor Zhou knew beforehand that it was a false surrender? Sima Yao, Prince Qi cursed. I spoke up for you. You abandoned the bright prospects before you to follow a path of rebellion unto death. Then go and die. Thankfully, Governor Zhou is cautious in his maneuvers, Yan Hongyuan said with lingering fear. Otherwise, Chen Sanxi's treacherous plot would have succeeded. Buzz! The sound of waves breaking roared. On either side of Sima Yao's fleet, a large number of small warships rushed out, prepared by Zhou Rong long ago. Humph! Unperturbed by the discovery of his plot, Sima Yao was not angered. The sky demon breathing method was unleashed. Amidst the blazing flames, his body suddenly expanded, and bones distorted with a crackling sound, splitting the robe as beast-like muscles fit snugly into his wide battle armor, transforming completely into a demon-like appearance. Zhou Rong, you brat! Sima Yao spoke. Even his voice was filled with a bloody tone, like a beast speaking human words. How did you see through my ruse? Zhou was merely cautious, not foresightful, Zhou Rong calmly said. After all, everything was too coincidental, too smooth. This is a chain of traps. Chen Sanxi first used the Heavenly Book array to force them into using the iron chain. At the time, even without Nie Yuan's words, Zhou Rong was prepared to use the iron chain, as it was the only solution. As it appears now, it is White Robe's stratagem. Even knowing that using the iron chain might lead to being unable to counter fire attacks, Zhou Rong had to take the chance, or he couldn't leverage the advantage of the large ships. After that, he continually engaged in role reversal thinking. If he were Chen Sanxi, how would he ignite the fire from inside? Then, on the eve of the decisive battle, Sima Yao sought to lead his followers in surrender. Of course, even then, Zhou Rong was not completely certain it was a false surrender, so he gave Sima Yao a chance. As long as he was willing to turn the ship around to be the vanguard, it was a genuine submission, otherwise it was a fake surrender. Turns out, just as expected. Boom rumble. The explosion and the clash of water and fire continued to resound. Zhou Rong suddenly drew the sword at his waist. Convey my command. The entire army charges straight at the rebel water fort. Thud, thud, thud. On one warship after another, deafening war drums beat. Amidst the flames, multicolored war flags waved. The 40,000-strong Imperial Jiangnan naval forces, under the blessing of the water control array, transformed into a city that could sail on water, advancing with an indescribable pressure, crushing everything in their path into dust. Breakthrough. Inform our forces to retreat. A demon like Sima Yao dealt with the attacks while issuing orders. All his subordinates abandoned the cumbersome medium-sized warships, boarded the smallest and nimblest sea falcons or walkboats, retreating along the original route. Despite this, the losses were severe. Setting aside the casualties, the warships brought were completely lost. On a cold winter night, on the Luoshao River, the Imperial 40,000 naval forces pursued triumphantly, while the rebels had no choice but to abandon all great villages, retreating continuously backward, losing grain, logistics, and particularly countless skilled warships along the way. Casualties were even beyond clear calculation. The court pursued relentlessly for a day and a night. Chibi's great victory. Governor Zhou, Zhang Jingwu reported, "The enemy army originally planned to ambush us, so they were prepared. After Sima Yao informed us beforehand, they immediately turned the ship around, abandoning the water fort and retreated." "And what of Chun Sansi?" Zhou Rong asked. "In last night's fierce battle, why wasn't there any sight of him?" Chapter 782, Surprise Troops. "Did you see Chun Sansi last night?" Zhou Rong ordered the entire army to stop advancing, then summoned all the generals commanding 10,000 troops to inquire. "Didn't see him." "Indeed, didn't see him. Now that you mention it, that's true." Ling Xia, the martial cultivator from the Ling family, said, "After each battle begins, we always remain inactive in secret, using all our focus to guard against Chun Sansi, preventing him from appearing suddenly anywhere. But last night, we only saw him on a small boat in the distance, and he didn't make a move." "A small boat?" Zhou Rong squinted his eyes. "Explain in detail." "Just as it sounds," Ling Xia repeated. "He stood on a lone small boat, retreating with the main forces of the rebel army. I was worried he had some trick, so I didn't rashly confront him, just stood opposite him from a distance." Zhou Rong's expression turned serious. "The entire army will rest on the spot, withdraw the advanced troops from the enemy's water fort, and then search one by one within our fleet." "Governor Zhou." Prince Qi pondered the implications. "Are you worried that Chun Sansi might sneak in amidst the chaos?" "Absolutely impossible," Ling Xia declared confidently. "Yesterday was a melee, but our forces mainly relied on Feiyun and Gai Hai to push through. The middle and small warships in the rear maintained formation throughout, with absolutely no abnormalities." "Yes, I can guarantee that too." Qiu Xin, a Qi refining perfected cultivator from Shengyun sect and a first-tier array master, who also commanded the Shengyun sect cultivators in the Battle of Chibi, said firmly, "The tower ships are equipped with water control arrays, each corresponding to a core array flag. Only by holding the core array flag can one freely enter and exit. As for the skies above the middle and small warships in the rear, we have cultivators overlooking the whole situation, and there are also patrols underwater, almost completely cutting off their possibility of infiltrating us." "Indeed, Lord Zhou," the senior sister of the Ling family spoke coldly. "Even if we take 10,000 steps back, and Chun Sansi really did sneak onto our ship alone, any commotion he makes would be immediately detected. By then, it won't just be us from the Ling family dealing with him, but all cultivators, combined to form a complete Gui water demon-slaying array, backed by the defense of the second-tier water control array. Within 10 rounds, we can definitely take his life." "That's right." Qiu Xin flicked his sleeves and said, "Even if he is invincible in the same realm and fights more courageously with each battle, he is still in the same realm. Not at the true power middle stage nor a foundation establishment predecessor, nothing to be feared. Cultivators, whether martial or magic, ultimately do not have the strength to surpass their own realm too much, otherwise the realm becomes meaningless. Moreover, this is on the Luoshao River, which happens to offer the advantage of the right time, place, and people stably restraining the fire element true power of the white robe. As long as they are united, there is no need to fear excessively. Unless defeat is inevitable, and Chun Sansi leads his cultivators to attack together. From what you say, it seems unlikely he would come to court death." Zhou Rong nodded, playing with the jade thumb ring on his thumb, falling into contemplation. "Governor Zhou," Yan Hongyuan spoke up, Are you being too cautious? I feel the same way. Prince Qi continued, Zhou Lang's caution is good for our forces, but being overly cautious might lead to missed opportunities. Now that the rebel naval forces are defeated and fleeing, it's time to seize the victory and pursue them. Zhou Rong did not rush to give orders but turned back into the cabin, standing silently in front of the hanging map. Governor Zhou, Yan Hongyuan anxiously said, we can't go on like this. The rebels are about to escape to the Wanlu region. It's the perfect time for a pincer attack and annihilation. The old general is right. Chiu Xian added, intelligence from spies indicates that the fake court in Yulon capital is preparing to move the entire court north. If they return to Bailiang alive, it will definitely be troublesome in the future. Finally, Zhou Rong made a firm decision, drawing the sword at his waist, pointing with the sword tip on the map. Chiu Xian, lead a fleet 50 miles ahead from the west of the Ruanxi River, then ambush at the exit of Green Ant Swamp to cut off their western retreat route. The rest of you, continue to pursue along the river with us, and block the rebel army completely into East Han Lake. East Han Lake is the largest lake in the Chibi Basin. From the map, the entrance is wide, but the western exit is extremely narrow, barely allowing a large ship through. Once sabotaged, it essentially traps them in East Han Lake. A perfect trap, Prince Qi praised. As long as we can force them into East Han Lake, not a single one will escape. The rebel force of 200,000 will all be buried here. Land warfare often lasts months or even years, while warfare on the river is by no means over in a day or two, especially with Luoxiao River being the biggest river in the Great Shang Dynasty, vast and boundless. Once all tactics were executed, 5 days had already passed. Fortunately, everything went smoothly. Governor, after the rebel navy discovered no retreat routes to the west, they indeed headed towards East Han Lake in the east. Good, Prince Qi said excitedly. In just a month, our army will drive the rebels into East Han Lake like herding sheep. At that time, the rebels will be like turtles leaving the water, waiting to be crushed by us. Chapter 783. Zhou Rong's face showed no sign of joy, because Chun Sansi still hasn't appeared. Capital Chang'an. Zhongjua Hall. Victory at Chibi. The Chibi battlefield naturally belonged to the eastern part of the Central Plains, not far from the capital, so the war report could be communicated almost at the fastest speed. Victory? So quick! The Regent King Qin personally checked the content and then burst into laughter. Zhou Rong's wisdom rivals that of the white robe. Everyone, come and see. What a clever strategy at the Battle of Chibi. The white robe first used the Heavenly Book Array to force Jiangnan's naval forces to unchain the linked locks, and then employed Sima Yao to stage a self-sacrifice strategy, almost setting a fire from within. But at the critical moment, Zhou Rong easily broke the self-sacrifice strategy, then defeated the enemy army. Even someone like me who's never led troops into battle can understand it now. Yan Maoxing pointed to the lake on the sand table and said, as long as we force the rebels into Eastern Han Lake, unless they can make all the warships fly, none will escape. Indeed. Prince Qin calmed his mood and began analyzing. The victory at Chibi is settled. Let's discuss the subsequent strategic deployment and see how we can completely annihilate them in the shortest time. Prince. Trouble happened to the prince. A eunuch stumbled into the hall. Xianglong, Tongli, and Donghua. These 3 counties have been overtaken by enemy army several days ago. Wait! Prince Qin raised his hand to interrupt. Where? Numerous officials gathered before the sand table. Only after several moments did they find these 3 counties located in the state prefecture on the west side of the Luoxiao River. Who? Prince Qin pursued once he found the city. How many enemy army? Who is the general? About 3,000 to 5,000 men. The eunuch took out the battle report, his hands and voice trembling slightly. The general is Chun Sansi. Chibi, Luoxiao River, Central Army ship. General Zhou. Governor Zhou. He's found. There is news about Chun Sansi. An assistant general, upon receiving the news, immediately came to report. Donghua County? Upon hearing this, Prince Qi quickly said, his appearance in Donghua County at this time means, likely earlier than Sima Yao's feigned surrender, he had already set off. What does that mean? Zhang Jingwu was startled. Could it be? Chen Sansi anticipated Lord Zhou would see through his self-sacrifice strategy, so he has other plans? This. Yan Hongyuan drew cold breaths repeatedly. What on earth does this young Chen intend to do? I know what it is. Third senior brother Nyuan suddenly spoke loudly, startling everyone, as he slapped the map. Governor Zhou, Prince Qi, generals, have a look. Where is it southward from Donghua County? Fuyu Prefecture? They all spoke in unison. Fuyu Prefecture is the granary for our naval forces. Prince Qi's pupils trembled. Then he said, gritting his teeth, Chen the Hunter intends to recreate Guandu's fire-burning Wuqing, torching my 40,000 troops' provisions? It's too late. Yan Hongyuan stomped his feet and pounded his chest, saying, in at most 2 days, the Chun child will reach Fuyu Prefecture. We're too short on troops in the east. There's no time to retreat and defend. My army's 6-month provisions will likely be entirely burnt up. This is not over yet. Third senior brother Nyuan again revealed the bitter news. Look again. What lies beyond Fuyu Prefecture? Behind Fuyu Prefecture lies an endless mountain range, with rugged paths hard to tread, not suitable for troop movements. Yet there exists an ancient path for over 1,000 years. Ziwu Valley. The end of Ziwu Valley is the capital Chang'an. Only at this moment did everyone suddenly realize Chen the Hunter intends to strike straight at Mei Mountain? Prince Qi's breath hastened. Yes. Not only is Prince Qin and the civil and military officials in the capital, but now even His Majesty is closed off within the Longevity Palace. If disturbed, the consequences will be unimaginable. Lord Zhou, Governor Zhou, why are you silent? What should we do next? Upon receiving the news that Chen Sansi appeared on land, most of the officials within the cabin fell into varying degrees of panic and anxiety. Only Zhou Rong was the exact opposite. Before finding the white robe, he was in a state of anxious urgency. But now, knowing well that the 40,000 troops' provisions stored in Fuyu Prefecture were about to be thoroughly burnt, Zhou Rong instead became exceedingly calm and collected. Governor Zhou, why aren't you worried at all? Prince Qi impatiently said. If provisions are gone, they're gone, but we absolutely cannot let Chen Sansi reach Chang'an. Zhou Rong rose abruptly. The enemy army is defeated. There's no longer a concern. Hasten to pursue the traitors, forcing them into eastern Han Lake. Lord Zhou, Nye Yuan confusedly asked, so we're not planning on dealing with the group led by Chen Sansi? Ziwu Valley's clever strategy. Zhou Rong said casually. Have you perhaps become so frightened you've forgotten that Dan Liangcheng and Immortal Master Dan are still near the capital? Once they exit Ziwu Valley, Immortal Master Dan can return for interception, plus the Ling family's ancestor Ling Kuei from Mang Mountain's ancestor vein will soon return. Chen Sansi can exit Ziwu Valley with at most 3,000 to 5,000 light cavalry, and they will surely be intercepted outside the capital. However, without him, the 20,000 rebel troops still at Chibi are nothing but a mob. Right now is an excellent time to exterminate the traitors, not just the 20,000 at Luoshao River. Even Yulon Prefecture and Bailiang must be pacified by our thunderous force. After hearing this, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Indeed. Chapter 784. Ling Ling spoke. Our family's ancestor has already gone to the Mang Mountain ancestor vein alone, slicing through several cultivators from Luoya Valley, not to mention the martial cultivators they hired with bounties. It's an enormous loss for them. The ancestor will soon head to the capital city, and their so-called Ziwu Valley surprise tactic is simply impossible to succeed. This war is not something one person can achieve. Even just the second-tier array master Dan Liangcheng, utilizing his troops to set up the Heavenly Book array, along with the arrays from the cultivation world, is not something Chen Sansi alone can break through. Not to mention the Ling family's ancestor, Ling Kuei, a martial artist at the True Power Middle Stage. True Power Middle Stage, combat strength equivalent to a Foundation Establishment Cultivator. That's good. So, Chun Sansi is like a dog in desperation? Truly crazy enough. If it weren't for Dan Liangcheng and Ling Kuei from the Ling family, who knows, he might have actually succeeded. Unfortunately, how can there be any ifs in warfare? Inform Immortal Master Dan and Elder Ling Kuei. Zhou Rong gave the command. Ensure that they put everything aside and return to the capital city for defense. As for Chun Sansi, after he hits the southern wall and returns, he will meet his death. This Ziwu Valley attempt is a desperate move by the rebel army. It aligns with the White Robe's nature of never sitting idly by and waiting for death. Even if they cannot directly march on Chang'an, they can burn the court's 6 months' worth of provisions for the 400,000 strong army, causing them significant losses. What about after the provisions in Fuyu Prefecture are burned? Soon. Yan Hongyuan considered this issue. The current batch of provisions is almost exhausted, and the next batch is still in Fuyu Prefecture. If Fuyu Prefecture is captured at this time, we will run out of provisions within 10 days. The consequences of a supply cut are obvious, and everyone present understands them well. If the soldiers are hungry, even the largest ships or the strongest formations are useless. Especially now, with provisions scarce, the reason they can still supply 400,000 troops for war is because they are utilizing local resources and water transportation to minimize losses. If the provisions in Fuyu Prefecture are set ablaze, they really won't be able to gather enough provisions in a short time. White Robe, truly ruthless. Transfer grain from Mongshan Prefecture. Zhou Rong ordered. Mongshan Prefecture? Yan Hongyuan said thoughtfully. The grain from there could indeed be transported along the Luoshao River Strait to Chibi, but that prefecture is just a small city in the southeast corner. Even if there is grain, I'm afraid it won't be enough to supply the 400,000-strong army. I have long calculated, the grain from Mongshan Prefecture can be transported to Chibi in at most 15 days and can sustain for about 40 days. Zhou Rong said strategically, 40 days is enough to end the Battle of Chibi. Yulan capital. Taiji Palace. Our army was defeated at Chibi, now fleeing day and night, at any moment facing the risk of total annihilation. Why not retreat? Orthodox Emperor Chao Huan thundered in fury. Have I not already told them not to clash head-on, to retreat quickly, preserve strength and then make plans slowly? Why insist on confronting the enemy head-on? Calm your anger, Your Majesty, Minister of Revenue Shangguan Haichong spoke. The decree had long been sent, but our army just does not want to retreat. We, staying far in the capital city, really have no means. The implication, of course, is that the Bailiang king defied the order. Orthodox Emperor Chao Huan had to suppress his anger, unable to probe further. After all, not long ago he had announced to the world, and even established an ancestral temple for the Chen family. He cannot so quickly disgrace the imperial family. Finally, Chao Huan could only patiently say, "Why is Chan Aiching doing this? Given the current situation, we should avoid direct confrontation." Your Majesty, Minister of Rights Fukajin, stood forth and said, "All under heaven know that the Bailiang king is unmatched in wisdom and courage. The war is not yet over. I think it is better not to hastily make assertions. Perhaps the prince has some divine strategy, waiting to be used at the last moment." These words gained quite a bit of approval. Even Orthodox Emperor Chao Huan himself became much calmer. He recalled the time of the blood-stained Liangzhou. Wasn't the White Robe also defying the order not to aid you state, yet stubbornly leading Hengzi camp deep into the Great Desert alone? They were expected to perish in vain, but what happened? They achieved the Sealing Longju, achieving the southern desert having no royal court. Perhaps they are plotting some grand strategy again this time? Amidst the speculation of the officials, finally, someone delivered the latest news from the front line. 10 days ago, it appeared to be a bitter ruse, but Chan Sansi had secretly left Luoshao River, leading 3,000 light cavalry straight to attack Fuyu Prefecture. And behind Fuyu Prefecture lies the ancient thousand-year road, Ziwu Valley. Is this the Bailiang King's surprise tactic? Certainly matches the military family's surprise victory approach. If he really manages to march directly to the capital city, wouldn't it end this great war prematurely? Ha, as I said, Orthodox Emperor Chao Huan spoke. Minister Chun certainly wouldn't act rashly, but has his own thoughts and strategy. Not right. While many praised this, Shangguan Haichang voiced a different opinion. He said solemnly, Fuyu Prefecture can be burned, but Ziwu Valley cannot be traversed. Let's not forget, the court still has a million-strong army. Dan Liangcheng and the High Realm martial cultivators from Mang Mountain over there. Even if Chun Sansi and his forces are fast, Chang'an would surely be able to react in time. After burning the provisions, Chun Sansi is most likely to return to Chibi. However, this is just too late. In the center of the hall lies a massive sand table, suspending the map of the entire Great Shang dynasty. Chapter 785. Upon hearing Shangguan Haichang's words, the officials finally reacted, realizing that the cunning plan concerning Ziwu Valley was not that easy to succeed. At the very least, it required 50,000 troops to attempt. A mere 3,000 light cavalry was far from sufficient. This time is different from entering the Great Desert alone. The barbarian tribes live in tents, while outside Ziwu Valley, there are cities as solid as gold and stone, and many advanced cultivators. If Chun Sansi gets stuck there, unable to advance or retreat, the Chibi army and Yulon capital city would first face major crises, potentially toppling at any time. This is the advantage of having a large army. Chang'an doesn't fear such surprise attacks at all. Fu Kejin, the Minister of Personnel, said, Everyone need not be so anxious. Even if Ziwu Valley fails, wouldn't the Bailiang King still be able to burn the Fuyu Prefecture's supplies? Burning them is useless. Ming Qingfeng, Minister of War, stood forward and said, The court must have other contingency measures, such as provisions from places like Mongshan Prefecture. Even if not much can be mobilized, it's enough to sustain the battle at Chibi. In other words, victory at Chibi is certain. Defeat is certain. Once control over Luoxiao River is entirely lost, Yulon Prefecture no longer remains safe. Soon to face the court's troop mobilization for a siege, the new dynasty barely established now faces the danger of being overthrown. Your Majesty, Shangguan Haichang said, the capital city is no longer a place to stay. Indeed, Your Majesty. If Chibi is defeated, it's tantamount to placing the capital before the enemy army. Our only path for survival is retreating into Bailiang territory. This time, General Chen really should not have rushed for victory. Even the officials from family clans fervently don't wish for the Bailiang army to be defeated. Unfortunately, the Bailiang army does not excel at naval warfare. Never mind. Let General Chen break through himself if he can. As long as the Bailiang king is alive, once we return to Bailiang, we can quickly stabilize the situation. Perhaps, in the future, we might rise again. But these delays can't go on. Possibly Zhou Rong has already divided his forces heading towards us. We must quickly leave the capital city. The new dynasty's nearly all high realm fighting ability is concentrated at Chibi. Should the enemy land ashore, they will be unstoppable like a tide. Your Majesty, decree to migrate north. Issue the decree. Regardless of the Bailiang King's battle outcome, we retreat first, which is always the safest choice. Migrate north. The Orthodox Emperor Chao Huan waved his hand. And so, not long ago the capital city Yulon Prefecture became empty within several days. The Orthodox Emperor Chao Huan, escorted by 20,000 elite soldiers, prepared to bypass Luoxiao River heading north, directly toward Yunzhou, to seek refuge in Bailiang territory and then hold the natural barriers again. Fuyu Prefecture. Night. Cold wind. Ancient road. Hoofbeats. Led by Chun Sansi, 3,000 light cavalry, taking advantage of the situation at the Chibi battle, landed with thunderous force and headed south, capturing 3 cities within 10 days. Under the bright moon, a massive city appeared before them. Fuyu Prefecture. This place is where the court's 40,000 troops store their provisions. And due to the court's excessive tension, placing all top-tier combat power on the river to guard against the White Robe, there was ample cavalry on land but insufficient battle strength. In front of Chun Sansi, it was almost as fragile as paper. As their iron hooves drew closer to the city, the sentries on the wall finally noticed the movement. Instantly, the piercing horns shredded the silence of the night. Blazing fire covered the moonlight's radiance. Enemy attack! There is an enemy attack! The Hongza camp. Charge! Among the 3,000 iron cavalry, a white horse led the charge, its body glowing with green mysterious spirit light, accelerating continuously, seemingly almost flying at low altitude, until 1,000 steps from the city, the white horse transformed into a stream of light and disappeared. A figure in a white robe rode a flying artifact arriving above the towering city wall within 2 breaths. The defense general of Fuyu Prefecture, Liang Liping, originally resting, upon hearing a stir, hastily climbed the wall, but upon seeing the white robe in the sky, his heart skipped a beat. "Brothers!" he shouted loudly. "Lay down your arms!" The deputy general beside him with a raised hand holding a knife froze, thinking he misheard. "General, what did you say?" "Surrender!" Liang Liping's loud voice echoed through the city. "Open the gates quickly!" "General, why surrender without a fight?" the deputy general angrily stated. "The court's 40,000 troops have supplies here. Brothers, hold tightly to defend." Slash! Before he finished, Liang Liping stabbed him with a knife, then beheaded him, raising his head and kneeling. "Welcome, Bailiang King." Chun Sansi gradually descended from the air. "Take me to the granary." Boom! Within Fuyu Prefecture, the firelight soared high. The supplies for the court's 40,000 troops, within one night turned to ashes. "What a damn shame." Wang Ji clicked his tongue. "This is so much grain." Yet they had no choice but to act this way, as there were too few among them to transport the supplies, and even dispersing them among the people would only lead to them being regathered. Fuyu Prefecture is captured. Wang Ji put down his knife and took out a slightly crumpled map. "What's next? I think continuing to Ziwu Valley might be too late. Why not return to Chibi first? Burning this much grain should be enough to disturb those bastards." "Indeed, Commander," Xiong Chuan said. "Chibi is currently unguarded, fearing it won't hold much longer. I heard over at Yulon Prefecture. King Jin is so scared he's wet his pants, leading 20,000 elite soldiers northward." Chapter 786. They also suddenly received orders to go ashore for a raid at the beginning. Having fought with the commander for so long, everyone guessed halfway through that this must be the Ziwu Valley's cunning plan mentioned by Sima Yao back then, right? Could the bitter ruse be a cover, with the real intention to directly threaten the capital city? But after coming here, Xiong Chuan felt something was amiss, because judging by the timing, it's impossible to reach the capital city without being intercepted. At dawn, continue the raid. Chun Sansi did not waste words. After issuing military orders, he went to a corner alone, took out a palm-sized iron box from a storage ring, and opened it to reveal pale yellow lamp oil inside. He also took out a pack of silver needles, and dipped the tip of each needle with a millimeter of lamp oil. The Immortal Treasure's lamp oil can ignite even in tiny amounts, so even after using it now, only 1/10 had been consumed, still enough to last a long time. About 100 silver needles were dipped in lamp oil and then all thrown into a storage bag. "Blue bird," Chun Sansi called. The blue bird hooked the storage bag with its sharp claws, then mobilized spiritual power within, quickly turning into a streak of light, disappearing into the horizon. After burning the granary inside Fuyu Prefecture, the Bailiang Iron Cavalry did not linger for a moment. They set off lightly again at dawn, plunging into the ancient path of Ziwu Valley, heading straight for the capital Chang'an. Capital City. Zhongjua Hall. Your Highness, Chen Sansi has already left Ziwu Valley and is heading directly for Zuaishan Prefecture. After crossing Zuaishan Prefecture, there will no longer be any strong city to defend, meaning the rebel army will soon reach the capital city. Uproar erupted within the hall. What is Chen the Hunter up to? Prince Qin paced back and forth, extremely angry. Could he really manage to break through? The other officials, recalling past battles of the White Robe, felt a mix of anxiety and trepidation. This, Yin Mingchun spoke. Is the man insane? Isn't he throwing away 20,000 soldiers under his command by doing this? I heard even King Jin and others fled from Yulon Prefecture in fright. What about Governor Zhou? Yen Maoxing asked. Does Governor Zhou know the whereabouts of the White Robe, and what does he say? Prince Qin said solemnly. Zhou Rong says not to worry, that there is no way Chen will succeed, but we must prepare for a significant loss of grain and fodder. Brother Zhou spoke correctly. A clear, loud voice sounded. Donning a cloud-patterned robe, holding a bamboo flute, Dan Liangcheng stepped across the hall's threshold. Immortal Master Dan? Seeing him, the civil and military officials instantly felt reassured. People now know. Dan Liangcheng's water control array, countering the White Robe effortlessly. It's not just me. Dan Liangcheng gently tapped his palm with the bamboo flute. Ling Kuei from the Ling family has also set out and will surely arrive before Chen Sansi reaches the capital city. So all of you can rest assured, we'll keep you safe and sound. Good, that's good. The officials all breathed a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, the court had many soldiers and generals, otherwise if 3,000 cavalry captured the capital city, it would certainly become the biggest joke in the world. Since the capital city lies free from danger, the rebel army is also doomed. Prince Qin thoughtfully said. We can issue orders to Zhou Rong, instructing him to prepare grain and fodder, and swiftly carry out the final showdown. Immortal Master Dan, you and the Ling family's ancestor can also prepare to mobilize 1 million troops. Grandly proceed with the northern expedition to reclaim the lands. Dan Liangcheng said nothing, merely quietly staring at the sand table before him. This White Robe, is he truly at his wit's end, making a last stand? Or is there another trick? Zuaishan Prefecture. A fire dragon roared, coming from hundreds of paces away, directly crashing onto the top of the sturdy city wall. The intense heat spread along with formidable true power, blasting out a huge gap and charring the main general to ashes. Chen Sansi once again effortlessly occupied the city. After passing Zuaishan Prefecture, ahead are no great cities, only small towns and prefectures, perfect for resupplying us. Zhao Wuji looked at the map, stated with some anxiety. We only need to raid for another 7 or 8 days and nights to reach the gates of Chang'an directly, an arm's length away from the capital city. While they raided 1,000 miles here, the battle at Chibi also continued, and fearfully approached the final moment, with no more room for retreat. Damn it! Let's go for it. The old emperor hasn't appeared, indicating he hasn't emerged. Charge into Chang'an. Execute the dog emperor. Yet, just when the soldiers had resolved themselves to their impending fate, Chen Sansi unexpectedly said, That's about enough, retreat. Retreat! Wang Ji was stunned. Commander, why retreat again? Zhao Wuji couldn't comprehend. We've been rushing day and night, barely managing to reach here. So close to the capital city, are we not taking a chance? That would be suicide, not gambling. Chen Sansi shook his head. He fully understood the capital city was surrounded by 1 million troops, second-tier array masters, and true-power middle-stage martial artists who could come from Mang Mountain at any time. Under such circumstances, only by leading a comparable army to attack, accompanied by Heavenly Book array, could it count as a fair showdown. Otherwise, one person's strength ultimately is limited. The deployment to Ziwu Valley was merely a demonstration. Take these. Chen Sansi handed several clone talismans to an accompanying cultivator from Guyuan sect, and then ordered, Zhao Wuji, Wang Ji, after I leave, both of you lead the men to retreat immediately. ready to gather at Chibi. Chapter 787. Chibi. Zhao Wuji said, Chibi is now the enemy army's territory. I'm afraid our army has long since retreated into the tributaries of the lakes. No, it's already over. Chan Sansi, with an unusually calm expression, uttered words that sent chills down the spine. The 400,000 troops of Jiang and have all turned into fish food beneath the Luoshao River. The words were finished. He took out the Divine Speed Talisman and Wind Avoidance Talisman, stepped on his flying artifact, and quickly disappeared into the sky. Chibi. The Jiangnan Naval Forces. The Central Army Ship. Report. Chan Sansi has already reached Zuaishan Prefecture outside of Chang'an City. Chun the hunter truly is mad. Prince Qi took out a secret letter just delivered by the royal court. In the capital city, immortal Master Dan Liangcheng has already returned. Even if Chan Sansi flies to Chang'an alone, it's already too late. It's just a pity. Yan Hongyuan sighed profoundly. The grain and fodder in Fuyu Prefecture, enough to sustain my 400,000 troops for half a year, have all gone up in flames. These were the very foundation of our great Shang dynasty. The Bailiang rebels. Truly detestable, Zhang Jingwu said through gritted teeth. They claim it's for the world, but in their hearts, it's all about their own benefits. Especially that Chen Sansi, heavily favored by the court. If he had any issues, couldn't he discuss them properly with the court? Did he have to raise an army in rebellion? The result is widespread suffering. Report. An assistant general hurriedly entered the cabin, clasping his hands. The rebel army failed to break through. 200,000 troops have been forced entirely into Donghan Lake. All exits in front and behind have been completely blocked. Good. Prince Qi excitedly slammed the table. This time, Chen the hunter has truly shot himself in the foot. If he hadn't led the troops out of Ziwu Valley personally but instead presided over the situation there, he might have carved out a path, saving some strength. But now, 200,000 troops will be entirely buried in Donghan Lake. Everything should end now. Zhang Jingwu said, once the grain and fodder arrive, my army can proceed to pursue victory, capturing the rebel forces at once. The problem lies here. Yan Hongyuan asked. After today and tomorrow, the army's grain and fodder will be exhausted. When will the supplies from Mongshan Prefecture arrive? That night, the news finally arrived. Report. Mongshan Prefecture has dispatched 20,000 troops to escort the grain and fodder, and they will arrive in at most 3 days. Hee. Zhang Jingwu stroked his beard, chuckling as he said, when we decided to offer amnesty to those bandits back then, I was somewhat displeased, thinking they should be exterminated. But who would have thought they turned out to be righteous and valiant? It truly is as they say, heroes don't care about origins. Mongshan Prefecture. It's a southeast prefecture near Liangshan Lake. Years ago, there was a band of bandits on Liangshan Lake, very formidable, but unable to withstand the pressure from Prince Zhannan. They eventually chose to accept amnesty. After restructuring and dispersing over 100,000 troops, only 20,000 remained, stationed in Mongshan Prefecture. Later, Nansu launched a massive invasion. This band of troops in Mongshan Prefecture, surprisingly valiant, had repeatedly earned distinctions in battles against Nansu. Their leader, Dan Chuanyu, has now been appointed General Cavalry, serving as the commander of Mongshan Prefecture's commanding department, with a subordinate fondly called Langlabatio, who is exceptionally brave. He had devised numerous brilliant strategies in battles on water against Nansu, earning many accomplishments. He is now the National Guardian General and serves as Deputy Capital Commander's commander. This time, the White Robe launched a surprise assault, burning the grain and fodder in Fuyu Prefecture. Thankfully, this band of troops from Mongshan Prefecture came to aid. Otherwise, the 400,000 troops would have truly been caught in a dilemma. Since the supplies have arrived, let's begin. Zhou Rong made the final deployment before the decisive battle. Prince Qi, General Nieyuan, you two stay behind to receive the supplies. Daoist Qian Qiren, You and General Zhang Jingwu lead a force to pursue Prince Jin and other rebels fleeing from Yulon Prefecture, ensuring they are intercepted south of the Luoxiao River to prevent any complications. The rest of the Ling family and all the generals prepare to join me in charging into Donghan Lake to eradicate the rebels. Luoxiao River. On a horseboat specially used for transporting grain and fodder. The former leader of Liangshan Lake, now the standard second-rank General Cavalry Dan Chuanyu, stood on the deck, gazing at the vast and boundless river, with Zhang Shun and Meng Qiuji bustling nearby. After parting ways with Zhang Lai, Meng Qiuji simply stayed in Liangshan, disguised himself, and changed his name to Meng Erling, becoming a valuable assistant. Even Zhang Shun had a pseudonym over at the court. Brother Erling, Dan Chuanyu said in confusion. Are you certain these are instructions from Hero Zhang Lai? Nonsense. Meng Qiuji, carrying a burlap sack, said. Didn't you see the letter? Hiss. Dan Chuanyu drew a sharp breath, pondering. So Hero Zhang Lai is a subordinate of the Bailiang King. General Shan. Meng Qiuji said in a deep voice. We're almost at the destination, you won't back down now, will you? How could that be? Dan Chuanyu said. If Hero Zhang hadn't intervened back then, I would have long been dead in the netherworld. How would I be here today? This time heading to Chibi, I shall repay him with all my might. Chapter 788. Since Shi was born, why was Rong born? Zipu Road. Since the emperor departed from Yulon Prefecture, he has been traveling north along Zipu Road, intending to cross the Luoxiao River and head straight to northern Yunzhou. Although there were 20,000 elite soldiers along the way, there was only one martial saint and only 4 mysterious phenomenon. In the eastern continent where cultivators are rampant, this could almost be said to be extremely low combat power. Report. An assistant general galloped up to the team on horseback. Your Majesty, disaster has struck. Zhang Jingwu, leading Shangyun sect cultivators and 20,000 troops, occupied Yulon Prefecture and is directly pursuing us. Quick! The Minister of War, Ming Qingfeng, said. Take the Green Vine Valley to the east. The 20,000 elite soldiers immediately changed direction. Along the way through the cities, they would also incidentally eradicate the spiritual grain. This was the idea of Lord Shangguan. Treasonous ministers run rampant in Chang'an. The emperor has been persecuted by traitorous ministers and thieves. Bailiang King, Chan Sansi, is executing immortals and exterminating traitors under the emperor's orders. Such statements were countless. The meaning intended to be conveyed was nothing more than the emperor's wisdom, and that the uprising of Bailiang King followed the existence of the emperor. Furthermore, every time they passed a place, the emperor would personally kill 2 local corrupt officials, and then go to the fields to personally pull out the spiritual grain, causing a sensation known to all. Later, there were even commoners crying to welcome them and many voluntarily joining the escort team. Lord Shangguan's move is brilliant. The Minister of Ministry of Industry, Fan Shikue, praised endlessly. The emperor's virtuous conduct naturally should be shown to all the people of the world. Shangguan Haichang sighed. If the world can be pacified, the emperor should travel far and wide to reclaim the people's hearts. He who gains the people's hearts gains the world. Lord Shangguan truly has the talent of a prime minister, but alas, Fan Shikue sighed. The new dynasty has just been established, yet faces such a great catastrophe. Our future remains uncertain. The accompanying officials were all sighing and lamenting. They were either officials of 4 generations or from families with 200 years of history, who had finally mustered the courage to take a gamble, yet the result seemed to be a total loss. It's not good. In front, we found 3 routes of the enemy army. A scout galloped back on horseback, directly falling from the horse in panic. My lord, we cannot cross the river. Enemies are pursuing from all directions. East, west, south, and north. Minister Ming, the emperor, Chao Huan, turned pale with fright, almost falling from the carriage. What should we do? Where is Fang Aiqing? Quickly bring Fang Aiqing here to think of a solution. after the new dynasty was established. Feng Chufang Qingyun, due to poor health, was no longer suitable for long journeys and battles, so he stayed in Yulan capital as an official. Naturally, he was brought along during this escape from the capital city. Mr. Feng took medicine not long ago and is still unconscious. Your Majesty, do not worry. Allow this minister to see if there is any place we can temporarily hold. The Minister of War, Ming Qingfeng, ordered his subordinates to bring the map, quickly selecting a destination. Quick! To Peizhou Prefecture. We can hold out at least another 20 days. The Emperor asked, what about after 20 days? After 20 days, there should be other troops coming to rescue. Ming Qingfeng's voice grew weaker as he spoke. Everyone understood. The court's high-realm military officers and the immortal masters of the Guiyuan sect were all in Chibi. Without them, no matter how many troops were brought over, it would be a complete collapse at the first strike. In other words, if the Chibi army is annihilated, then Peizhou Prefecture will be the burial ground for the emperor and his civil and military officials. Chun Aiqing, oh Chun Aiqing, Chao Huan lamented, beating his chest. If only I had listened to your words at the time, how could it have come to this defeat? Yes, indeed. If not for Chun Sanxi's defiance of the imperial decree, it wouldn't have come to this. Now it's too late to say this. Ming Qingfeng urged, Your Majesty, everyone, hurry and head to Peizhou Prefecture. Boom! At that moment, a loud noise came from above, and the clear sky turned menacingly dark in an instant, with an icy rain pounding down from the clouds like arrows. Under the escort of 20,000 elite soldiers, Emperor Chao Huan entered the pitch-black Peizhou Prefecture, akin to entering a coffin. Chibi, East Han Lake. The commander in white robe was not stationed here. Therefore, the new dynasty's navy fleet was not only being defeated repeatedly, but numerous breakout attempts also failed, forcing them to retreat into this lake, preparing to escape from the easternmost outlet of East Han Lake. Soon, one after another, scouts who went to investigate the waterway returned on small boats, bringing extremely bad news. Strategist. It's bad, strategist. The eastern outlet of East Han Lake has been blocked by huge stones. If the ships continue, they will crash directly into them. The outlet of East Han Lake is narrow, allowing only one large ship to pass, and the water isn't too deep. If cultivators intervene, the exit can be blocked in a short time. Upon hearing this, many generals looked as if they had seen death. Now East Han Lake seemed like a huge jar, trapping them inside with no escape, truly a case of being caught in a jar. Where is the commander? At the critical moment, many of the court's military officers fell into panic. Ever since half a month ago, Chun Sanxi had disappeared without a trace until they received news a few days ago that the commander had surprisingly led 3,000 light cavalry through Ziwu Valley, charging all the way to the capital city. But this was obviously not a wise choice. Not to mention the court still had many armies and second-tier array masters. Even if there was a glimmer of hope, what about them? Isn't it equivalent to Chun Sanxi leaving them here, regardless of life or death? Chapter 789. Brother Sima. Qian Qiren from the Guiyuan sect inquired. You said the ruse of self-harm was planned between you and Chun Sanxi. If Ziwu Valley proves unsuccessful, how should we respond? Did he tell you anything? Sima Yao stood leaning on his sword, gazing at the distant river in silence. Su Wenkai. Qian Qiren approached the strategist with the feather fan and scarf. Since Chun Sanxi left, you've been holding the commander seal and directing. Didn't he tell us how to break through? Standing in the cold wind, Su Wenkai slowly pointed his feather fan to the rear, commanding loudly. If we can't leave, then we shall not try. All warships should turn around. Prepare for a decisive battle with the enemy army. A fight to the death. Are you insane too? Qian Qiren looked perplexed. The opposing side has a second-tier formation. They can crash into us and crush our forces. With what are we to have a decisive battle? Why not break out instead? Indeed, knowing that we can't win yet still charging ahead recklessly. Isn't that courting death? The cultivators from the Guiyuan sect and some generals debated among themselves. Moreover, quite a few cultivators were already planning to abandon the army and run away on their own. Those who disobey orders. Su Wenkai prolonged his tone. Behead! Military orders are as immutable as mountains. For the Bailiang army, they naturally complied without dissent. The imperial troops knew there was no retreat, so they could only grip their weapons tightly, ready for victory or death. Only the cultivators hesitated, leaning more towards outright fleeing. Mr. Su. King Yen, Chao Ji, approached and inquired, "Do you and my big brother have any ingenious plan?" According to his understanding, the likelihood of the white robe abandoning everyone's life and death to attack Ziwu Valley was very low. But in the current situation, it seems they're at a dead end, unable to guess their true intentions. Your Highness, what kind of ingenious plan could we have? Su Wenkai said indifferently. With no retreat path behind us, isn't it just a fight to the death? Enough. Chao Ji, half believing and half doubting, naturally understood the principle of, if it's not secret, it leaks, thinking perhaps it cannot be revealed. Thus, he began to persuade the cultivators to stay. Fellow Taoists of Guiyuan sect, success or failure hinges on this one move. How can we speak of retreat so easily? Chao Daoyu, I'm afraid even if we wish to retreat, it won't be so easy. A cultivator from the Guiyuan sect looked up to the sky and suddenly spoke. Only to see. Directly above them, the cultivators of the Shangyun sect had completely sealed off the escape, forming battle formations among themselves, clearly not intending to let a single person, including the Guiyuan sect cultivators, escape. Insufferable! Qian Qiren angrily said, Brothers, since the Shangyun sect gives us no escape route, we have no choice but to fight them to the death. At Seeking Immortal Tower, the Guiyuan sect cultivators, having no retreat, had to accept the military orders with anger. And so, the small and large ships of a 200,000-strong army all turned their bows towards the entrance of Donghan Lake, then arrayed their naval battle formations, fully prepared, awaiting the last moment. Luoshao River. Jiangnan Naval Forces Great Army. The Rear Army. Prince Qi and Prince Qin, aboard a Mengchong battleship, sailed in the opposite direction of the main army, then moored at the dock. After waiting for about 2 hours, they saw towering sails appear in the distance, with transport vessels quickly approaching and gradually reducing speed near the dock. Standing on the deck of the foremost transport ship was a middle-aged man dressed in a long robe, full of scholarly air, who saluted from afar toward the python-robed prince with respect. Minister Dan Chuanyu pays respects to your highness, the great Shang Prince Qi. Ha. No need for formalities, General Shan. Prince Qi got straight to the point. There's no issue with the quantity of supplies, is there? This concerns the life and death of my great army. Rest assured, your highness, Dan Chuanyu assured. These supplies are enough for 40 days of consumption for the 40,000-strong naval forces of the court. Oh, even more than anticipated. Prince Qi waved his hand, signaling his subordinates to go up and count. After confirming the supplies were sufficient, he couldn't help but beam with joy. Great! With General Shan's supplies, defeating the bandit army is a finger snap away. Your Highness! Dan Chuanyu clasped his fist. The supplies have been delivered. What arrangements do you have for us? Do you even need to ask? Prince Qi said without hesitation. Naturally, you'll be integrated into the naval forces. A while ago, they had split off part of their troops to chase King Jin on land, so they could use these men from Liangshan to fill the gap. Dan Chuanyu and his men, to deliver supplies at the fastest speed, didn't bring battleships, almost entirely using transport horse ships, and thus were dispersed among the various battleships. General Shan. Prince Qi patted his shoulder. Coming early is surely not as good as coming at the right time. The great army is about to enter its decisive battle. Seize the opportunity to make a name for yourselves. Minister Dan Chuanyu is willing to go through fire and water for the court. Dan Chuanyu's voice resonated. Good, excellent. Prince Qi was greatly pleased. In our great Qing dynasty, We have loyal and heroic families like Zhou Lang within, and righteous warriors like General Shan outside. How can we not flourish for generations? Quickly board the ships. Brothers, the time to serve the court has arrived. Board the ships, Dan Chuanyu shouted. The Liangshan contingent, originally from naval forces with everyone skilled in diving, required no training and could dive straight into battle. Nearly 20,000 heroes of Liangshan boarded the available Feiyun and Gai Hai Tower ships. Governor Zhou, everything is ready. Supplies and personnel are adequate. On the eve of the decisive battle, Zhou Rong changed his usual behavior, no longer drinking or playing, not leisurely lounging, but staying up day and night, hardly eating even a single grain. Chapter 790. He opened his mouth and asked, "Where's Chun Sansi?" The last time he appeared was at the Zuaishan prefecture. Yan Hongyuan counted on his fingers. If we count the days, he should be able to launch a surprise attack outside the capital city within these 2 days. But just as Lord Zhou predicted earlier, Immortal Master Dan will be stationed at the capital city early, and Ling Kuei from the Ling family will also arrive simultaneously. Combined, Chun Sansi leading 3,000 light cavalry to storm through is almost equivalent to a death sentence. It's a great opportunity indeed. The elderly Zheng Ren waved his fist. Without Chun Sansi, the resistance will of the rebels should plummet to its lowest. It is exactly the right time to advance.
No.
Zhou Rong's face was grave as he said in a deep voice. After the scheming at Ziwu Valley failed, Chun Sansi would not stay there. He should return. Indeed, in a short hour later, intelligence from the capital city arrived. Chun Sansi has withdrawn. Since their surprise attack on the Zuaishan prefecture, there has been no further activity. So Immortal Master Dan sent a team to scout, only to find the city empty. Chun Sansi and his 3,000 light cavalry have long disappeared without a trace. Yan Hongyuan snorted coldly. It seems he chose to retreat in the face of difficulties. It's unlikely for him to abandon his subordinates at Chibi. If the Beiliang army is annihilated, he would become a lone general with no chance of recovering, so it's highly likely he followed Governor Zhou's suggestion and returned. Zhang Jingwu analyzed. His greatest gain from the surprise attack was burning our army's provisions in Fuyu Prefecture. But unfortunately, they cannot drag it out until we run out of supplies. Narrow victory. Even if they have 400,000 troops, countless Feiyun and Gai Hai, combined with the second-tier water control array, they have still been deadlocked with the inexperienced Beiliang army until now, and even their provisions were burned. Even if it drags on for another 2 months, the situation could still reverse, and a crushing defeat is not impossible. Even with the victory already certain, thinking about it is still somewhat frightening. Chun Sansi truly cannot be allowed to remain. Governor Zhou, you need not worry. Chiu Xian from Shangyun's sect said, even if Chun Sansi returns alone, it won't make any difference. This immortal Master Chiu is mistaken. Nye Yuan spoke. Do you think Governor Zhou is worried about my junior brother returning? On the contrary, if he continues to attack Chang'an, we should be concerned. But now that he's retreated from Zuaishan Prefecture, it proves he has no tricks left and can only return to us and fight at Chibi. Indeed, as he said, after all the intelligence was compiled and summarized, Zhou Rong, the only descendant of the Zhou family and head of the Qilin Pavilion in the Dashing dynasty, stood up from his position as commander, his voice resolute. Order the 3 armies. Within 8 days, rush to East Han Lake. Exterminate the traitors. Provisions arrive, soldiers are complete. The 400,000 naval fleet no longer needs to wait, and under the iron chain, one floating fortress after another begins to advance, heading towards the direction of the rebels' escape. The battle at Chibi, which lasted for a full 3 months, finally entered its final moments. East Han Lake. The new dynasty navy has been trapped here for 9 days. Although there are provisions aboard, they cannot move and can only rely on the sealed exit, facing the entrance to the Great Lake like a prey driven to a dead end by a hunter, with no way to retreat, only showing its not-so-sharp claws in a final resistance. Boom! Thunder and lightning flashed, Torrential rain poured. The water level of the Luoxiao River continued to rise. Even the surface of East Han Lake was violently turbulent, like an endless expanse of water ready to erupt in a tsunami. Strategist. The enemy has entered East Han Lake from the mouth of the lake, and will collide with us head-on in no more than 2 hours. Central Army ship. Su Wenkai, Chao Ji, and other high-ranking generals and cultivators gathered on the constantly rocking deck, listening to the scouts' final ultimatum, falling into a silence. In their vision, they could see jet-black giant beasts appearing on the distant water surface, swimming with their claws waving, creating surging waves, changing the color of the heavens and earth, almost overturning the East Han Lake. At a distance of about 10 miles away, ships flying the dashing flag and Zhou General's banner, Feiyun, Gai High Tower ships, began to gleam with spirit light, raising arc-shaped water walls on their surface. The heavy rain fell on them and melded in, further empowering an already invincible second-tier array. From afar, the water walls appeared as waterfalls. The Imperial giant beast fleet crept forth behind the waterfalls. Their speed was not fast, but they were exceptionally steady, unmoved amid the turbulent waters, slaughtering even the fish and shrimp, crabs and prawns at the lake bottom wherever they passed. Above the night sky, a bright blue heavenly thunder streaked across, illuminating the vast and murderous East Han Lake, reflecting Su Wensai's figure clad in feather fan and kerchief, under the gaze of thousands of soldiers. His black and white feather fan was raised high, and then heavily fell. Boom, boom, boom. War drums sounded, banners wafet. Ultimately, the trapped prey in East Han Lake took the initiative to charge toward the jet-black giant beasts, truly engaging in a fight to the death. Buzz! Mana spirit light flashed continuously. Cultivators on both sides each summoned their own magic artifacts, rising into the air, gathering above the cloud-covered East Han Lake, beginning the battle of magic before the armies officially clashed. Seeking Immortal Tower's Tower Master Cui Jichen, with a heavenly grade Earth Spirit root, relying on the treasures within the Seeking Immortal Tower, reached Qi refining perfection early, achieving the same Qi refining 16-layer realm as Li He from the Li family without consuming a foundation establishment pill. Chapter 791. In the air, suspended 100 feet high, he gazed down at the chaotic battle on the river, his hands weaving seals in the air, an orange-yellow array seal appearing before his chest, with his life-bound flying sword hovering within, continuously drawing upon his mana until it reached a critical point. Then it suddenly blasted outward. The target was none other than Qiu Xian, a cultivator from Shangyun sect. Qiu Xian, having just clashed with a cultivator from Guiyuan sect, noticed the sudden ambush from the flank, quickly reshuffling his mana, swinging his life-bound magical treasure, the Hunyuan mace, aiming to deflect the flying sword. But Cui Jichen's sword, appearing delicate, was imbued with the power of mountains, deep and boundless mana, coupled with his hasty defense leaving him almost unable to control his magic artifact, causing him to spew blood under the massive impact, his body plummeting straight into the lake. Just as Cui Jichen was about to pursue victory, he saw atop the lake a martial cultivator donned in a robe, wielding a soft sword, treading the water lithely like a flying swallow or a dragonfly skimming the water. Each of them was a true power early-stage warrior. None underestimated their foes despite their numbers, forming a strange formation even while rushing ahead, each move channeling the strength of rivers and streams. Especially the woman at the core of the formation. A single sword stroke would raise waves over 10 feet high, imbued with true power like the Jiao Long thrusting out of the sea, towards the Tower Master of the Seeking Immortal Tower. Cui Jichen gathered his mana, directing the flying sword to stab at the water dragon, initially splitting the stream with great force, but only a moment later, the earthen mana on the surface of the sword dimmed, losing control as it spiraled out, embedding itself 100 steps away into a warship's deck. The water dragon charged relentlessly. In haste, he cast spells, talismans, magic artifacts, forming 3 barriers before him, yet they only held briefly before the dragon, shattering like glass in layers. Against them, There were, after all, 7 true power warriors. In terms of combat power, true power early stage was equivalent to late stage of chi refining or perfection, not to mention 7 minds united in formation. It was essentially invincible under foundation establishment. Even with Cui Jichen's practice of yellow earth decision, his mana supposed to suppress water, failed to withstand the siege. His back hit the water surface like hard rock, blood spilled from his mouth, and he hastily channeled spells, deploying several life-saving moves, narrowly escaping with accelerated speed into the sky before the Ling family martial cultivator's soft sword came for his life, bearing severe injuries. Not only him, the other disciples from Guiyuan sect and Seeking Immortal Tower, even warriors like Sima Yao, all were caught in bitter struggles. Meanwhile, pushing the water control array, the giant warship was closing in on their fleet. From above it looked like a boulder crashing onto an egg. Imaginations of impending destruction unfolded. Breakthrough! Qian Qiren hurried beside. Taoist Cui, defeat is certain. If we, perfection cultivators, unite, maybe 2 or 3 of us could break out alive. Cui Jichen wiped the blood from his mouth with his rain-laden right hand, then flew back onto the central army ship, preparing to break through and flee with King Yen. Yet then, standing bloodied on a sea falcon, resembling a ferocious wolf demon, Sima Yao shouted, "The commander has returned. The enemy army is defeated. Why do you still retreat? The enemy army is defeated." Sima Yao. Cui Jichen reacted instantly. "What are you hiding from us?" "Apologies Daoist Kui." Sima Yao's wolfish grin bare with fangs. "Loose lips sink ships. Commander! The commander truly returned. Look quickly." Thousands of soldiers looked skyward. Amidst the black clouds, a fiery arc with trailing blue smoke rapidly closed in. In a blink above East Han Lake, clad in black armor, holding the fiery flame spear. Who else could it be but Chen Sansi? Chun the Hunter. On the Jiangnan Naval Forces ship, Prince Qi hid behind the water control array, cursed at the silhouette in the sky. "You truly dare return? Better concede and die willingly. The court might spare your kin for past merits. Otherwise, if stubbornly proceeding, expect extermination of your 9 clans." Amid the clouds, Chun Sansi ignored his words, instead spoke slowly, his voice beneath the savage helm overshadowing thunder, eclipsing the roaring waves. "Brothers from Jiangnan, I, Chun Sansi, detest slaughter, nor am I a bloodthirsty man. Now your defeat is certain. Hurry and lower the water control array. Disembark and surrender, lest Chibi be stained with blood. Detest slaughter? Hurry, surrender." Remark spoken. Incredibly, left Jiangnan Naval Forces soldiers somewhat dazed, failing to understand what he spoke. Or defying the heavens. Wasn't it 20,000 rebel army in dire straits, soon crushed to dust? Why did the white robe turn to persuade them to surrender? Ha 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 ha. Prince Qi laughed aloud. "Chun the Hunter, do you think the king and soldiers were terrified? In helpless straits, still boasting." Chun Sansi. Zhou Rong placed one hand behind, gazed at the black clouds, loudly uttered, "Matters reached here? Do you insist on dragging Beiliang army to accompany you to the grave? Why not accept responsibility alone? Perhaps gaining some esteem from Zhou." Zhu Lang. Suspended, Chun Sansi raised his spear, encircled in flames, as rain poured down, evaporating before touching armor. His voice measured. "You possess great talent. Why serve a dull court? Better abandon darkness for light. Join under my Beiliang army banner, to reclaim a bright world together." Chapter 792. Hee. Zhou Rong sneered. "Chun Sansi, if you want a rebel, just rebel. Why try to make it sound so grandiose?" During the conversation between both sides, the warships of both armies did not stop advancing. Amidst the thunder and roaring waves, which were deafening, everything suddenly seemed to become silent, like a moving ancient painting. Only a sigh echoed through the heavens and earth. "Enough! Your lives! Chun will take them. In the vast sky, array the army!" Chun Sansi enunciated word by word. 8 gates Xuanfeng San Bone Formation. With an order given. On the ships of the Bailiang army, one green flag after another was raised. The large ships remained in their original formation without moving, while the medium and small warships began to flexibly change positions, with a small flag tucked behind the necks or at the waists of every soldier on each small ship. Before the battle at Chibi, the naval forces had already practiced multiple formations in advance, including naturally the Heavenly Book Array. And quickly arranging formations and adapting to changes had long become the most basic skills of the Bailiang army. Not to mention, before the battle started, Su Wenkai had already planned the formation according to the approximate location of the 8 gates Xuanfeng Sanbone formation, and now it was just a small adjustment, completed in almost the time of a cup of tea. When the cultivators in the sky looked down, they could see on the stormy surface of Donghan Lake an 8 gates array formed by a series of warships, with green flags fluttering, resembling a precise 8 trigram mechanism. Strands of mystical energy poured out of the Shenju, then transformed into strands of gentle wind that landed accurately on each warship. In an instant, the wind stopped. The surface of Donghan Lake, which had been surging with waves, suddenly became abnormally calm. As if everything had come to a halt, the waves fell vertically, and the heavy rain stopped swaying. All the warships, from the large Feiyun Tower ships to the small dinghies, stopped rocking, as if moored on a sea of death. The silence on the lake lasted for about 10 breaths before a cold wind began to blow again. However, the direction of the wind changed from northwest to east wind. Just as a martial artist gathers power before an all-out strike, the brief calmness of the lake seemed to be for a greater storm, making everything more violent. The gale raged. The waves surged to the sky. Between heaven and earth, a terrifying cyclone suddenly arose, as if turning the entire Donghan Lake upside down. The huge waves getting higher and higher, blocking out the sky and sun. In the headwind condition, the speed of the Jiangnan Navy fleet, even with the support of the water control array, suddenly halved. In contrast, the Bailiang Navy gained a tailwind, propelled by the mystical energy-infused gale, not even needing the soldiers to row, bursting out with amazing speed relying only on the sails. So fierce was the wind that all the torrential rain, before falling down, was blown into wind and water arrows, pouring overwhelmingly towards the Jiangnan Navy fleet. Another Heavenly Book Array. Zhang Jingwu, feeling the warship obviously slowing down and watching the huge waves slamming against the hull, said in both shock and anger, "Fortunately, my army has the water control array, and combined with the iron chain to minimize the impact, otherwise, the ship would have capsized and lives would have been lost. Such a petty demon wind. What's there to fear?" Prince Qi personally hit the war drums heavily on the edge of the deck, his voice tremendously loud. "Kill the enemies! Kill the enemies! East wind!" Amidst the chaos, Zhou Rong watched the rainwater arrows, driven by the gale, incessantly striking the water control array, inexplicably anxious. "Why is it east wind? Governor Zhou, what you said," Yan Hongyuan declared matter-of-factly. "The bandits want to attack us with demon wind. Naturally, they want us to be against the wind, but it's meaningless. My army is not afraid at all. They are just struggling in vain before death. Everything is over. That's the problem. The wind is fierce, but has very limited effect on my naval forces. Since it's useless, why do it?" Zhou Rong, rubbing the jade thumb ring on his thumb, had a furrowed brow and a grave expression. In this east wind, if a great fire is started, the consequences would be unimaginable. Recalling what Qin Sansi had said, it didn't seem like mere tough talk. Could it be they still planned to use a fire attack? "Quick!" Feeling increasingly uneasy, Zhou Rong shouted towards the lake. "What are you still standing around for? Kill Chun Sansi. Kill him." In fact, the martial cultivators from the Ling family had already taken action. They took out a large number of spirit stones provided by the Shangyun sect, and with the downpour from the heavens, the power of the Gui water demon-slaying array increased by another 20%. Whirlpools of muddy water entwined with sand, wielded by soft swords, transformed into vengeful dragons sweeping from all directions. Only to see, floating on the water's surface, Chan Sansi, with the long bright silver spear transformed into a fire dragon circling around him, and a dense array of purple sword blades behind him, surrounded by thick earth shields emitting spirit light. In his hand, there was a heavy bladeless broadsword, its surface tainted with residual evil chi and swirling with ever-gathering fire element true power, continuously evaporating water vapor in the void. The sword swung to his side behind him, vibrating continuously with true power condensation, almost roaring like a dragon, standing still until the vengeful dragon came within inches. Then he fiercely swung the sword. Chapter 793. One slash cuts down, drawing a vicious arc of fire across the dark lake surface, directly annihilating all the dragon bastards. Boom! With the clash of two forces, a massive wave erupts from their center, sending lake water skyward, forming a gigantic water wall across the lake. Before Ling Ling, the eldest sister of the Ling family, could make a move, she saw a flash of fire faintly lighting up behind the murky water wall, and then the surroundings suddenly became incredibly scorching, as if in an instant transitioning from winter to summer, or akin to standing at a volcano crater. Beneath was no longer cold lake water, but scorching lava. By the time she raised her eyes again, she saw a mountain-like giant blade only a step away from her. The water element breathing technique was activated, spiritual power stored in the body was circulated through the meridians layer by layer, then transformed into water element true power via the Jingshan shrine within the body, combined with the torrential rain, alongside the Gui water demon-slaying array. Ling Ling lifted her sword, stirring up the entire East Han Lake and collided with the raging flames. Yong! Deep rumble simultaneous with thunder in the sky. One strike exchanged. Chun Sansi retreated dozens of zhang, while Ling Ling was sent flying nearly 100 zhang before steadying herself, her face shimmering with water droplets, her expression turned heavier. White robe, stronger yet again. Ever since the Battle of Chibi began, each confrontation, Chun Sansi would fight with them, but the Ling family members couldn't do anything to him. Instead, later on, this guy completely treated them as sparring partners, his cultivation advancing faster with each passing day. But as the day so, Ling Ling had to once again stir up lake water, maintaining the formation setup, and continue relentlessly besieging the white robe along with her clan. On the windswept lake surface, Chan Sansi, clad in ancient black armor, treading on a flying artifact, holding a spear in one hand and a sword in the other, calmly responded to the siege of 7 people. The crisp clang of weapons colliding and the explosive sound of force constantly resounded. The exchange grew increasingly rapid, until finally transforming into mere afterimages. Even cultivators of qi refining perfection found it hard to discern their movements, only seeing layers of massive waves and billowing blue smoke amidst which Tianhe's sword light and flames constantly interlaced. During this process, a ball of white light on the right side of Chan Sansi's spine grew brighter, eventually resembling a scorching white day. Right kidney god. Name Xiang Tao. Courtesy Dao Yu. 3 inches and 5/10 long. Clothed white or black. Cultivation technique. Dragon scripture. True power early stage. Progress. 437/500. Central 8 scenic gods. 7 opened. Boom! Another slash down. This time, directly sending Ling Ling, the eldest sister of the Ling family, into the lake, only resurfacing after 2 whole breaths, stepping on a whirlpool. All were martial cultivators. How could they not understand? This person was unlocking another scenic god during battle. This truly took them for cultivation. Utter humiliation. In an instant, the Ling family members felt extremely enraged, erupting with their life's limits. But even so, it was futile. After unlocking another scenic god, they could clearly feel the white robe's true power growing significantly stronger. Even with the Gui water demon-slaying array, the Ling family could no longer suppress the opponent, but rather the opponent alone was suppressing them. 7. Yong Yong. With each slash landed, Each spear thrusted. The true power became more vigorous. After 10 rounds, the protective true power of the Ling family members was completely damaged. The scorching flames had burned large areas of their flesh. Hold on. Fourth Uncle Ling Chia gritted his teeth against the excruciating pain from half of his scorched face. Looking at the two forces about to collide, calmly said, "Once the other Taoists free up, we will form a complete Gui water demon-slaying array." Still capable of slaying him, the two forces' ships clash. The Jiangnan naval forces possess the water control array, almost needless to do anything, just a collision could win the battle. You don't need to wait anymore. Chun Sansi could easily see their intentions, his tone calm as if stating something already happened. From now on, the map will no longer contain the East Han Lake. What did you say? Under the influence of the Eight Gates Xuanfeng Sanbone formation, the Jiangnan naval forces' speed against the wind grew increasingly difficult. Yet the Bailiang army, no matter the size of ships, became as agile as swimming fish. Amidst the surging sound of battle drums, the two sides were about to collide. On the Central Army ship, most of the generals had left the water control array going out to fight. Commander Zhou Rong and Prince Qi sat in command, the ship mostly filled with ordinary soldiers, primarily archers, continuously shooting arrows outside. All arrows passing through the water control array gained a bit of water element power, able to penetrate armor. Under the array's enhancement, even ordinary soldiers had chances to kill assistant generals at the Meridian Passage level. Governor Zhou, why the worried face? Prince Qi held a bow and arrow, brimming with war intent. East wind. Fire attack. To deal with their army only by resorting to fire attacks. From the start, it was an open card. Zhou Rong understood this, having prepared various preventive measures, thinking it foolproof, but the current east wind caused him to feel uneasy. To ignite this fire, it must not only be internal but also blossom everywhere, all flaring up in an instant, leaving no chance to separate ships. So, how should this fire be lit? Lost in thought, a stranger holding a steel fork appeared in the visual corner, casually tossing a torch onto the deck. The originally orange-yellow flame touching a silver needle suddenly turned crimson-red. Chapter 794. The Burning of Chibi. Just as Zhou Rong was racking his brains trying to fathom how the White Robe Society would ignite this fire from within their naval forces, a strange-looking general lit a flame on the deck right before his eyes. The flame turned scarlet red upon touching the silver needle. Buzz! In that instant, Zhou Rong felt a loud buzzing in his head, and the scene before his eyes froze. Everything that happened during the Battle of Chibi began to flash through his mind like a swift horse's view of flowers. From the first clash of the two armies, the opponent used the Great Array Dragon King sacrifice, forcing the large ships to halt and resort to the Iron Chain. Then combined with Sima Yao's feigned surrender to lower his guard. The real goal was to head straight to Fuyu Prefecture to burn the grain supplies. Then feign an attack on the capital city from Ziwu Valley, making everyone believe he was making a last-ditch effort and failed. But in reality, from start to finish, Chun Sansi had only one objective. That was to spare no effort to pull the bandits from Mongshan Prefecture into the Imperial Army, and ignite this fire from within the water control array. No demand. Then create demand. If the ships are scattered and can't be burned thoroughly, then stir up the waters, forcing you to resort to the Iron Chain. If there are plenty of troops, then burn the grain supplies, forcing you to transfer grain from Mongshan Prefecture. This step-by-step connection. It seems complex, but in truth, it was all inevitable, because Zhou Rong had no choice but to follow the path predetermined by the White Robe. For instance, if the ships were not Iron Chain-bound, they simply couldn't win, and if grain wasn't transferred, chasing after was impossible. He was like an old ox in a field, being led forward by the nose. 4 crossings of Hengzi. Zhou Rong naturally knew of the Battle of Ming State that made the White Robe world-renowned. In his view, whether it was the later inevitable situation where thousands of troops avoided the White Robe, the brave raid beyond Hulao Pass breaking through 3,000 to 10,000, or the desperate sealing of Longju, or the desperate battle at Guandu, where enemies were devoured, and eventually the Liang Wang's face-off at Qiantang Prefecture after entering the battle formation. All these incidents seemingly grand and defeating more and more soldiers. But in his personal opinion, the 4 crossings of Hongzhe was truly the White Robe's masterstroke. Though this chibi cannot compare, yet it had a similar strategy, because it achieved commanding the enemy. When you are told to use the iron chain, you use the iron chain. When you are told to transfer grain, you transfer grain. It's like commanding them. The buzzing sound grew even more intense. Zhou Rong could hardly hear other sounds around him, only seeing Prince Qi voicelessly roaring something, followed by a large group of soldiers charging toward that young general holding a steel fork. Liangshan. This man was the deputy capital commander of the Mongshan Prefecture Commanding Department, registered by the court under the name Zhang Tao. How did they collude with the White Robe? Liangshan and Liangzhou, one at the northmost of the great Sheng dynasty, the other at the southmost. Who would think they'd have a connection? One wrong move, and the entire board is lost. Young master, are you all right? The old servant hurried forward to support him, tapping at his acupoints. Zhou Rong finally gradually returned to the normal world. Take him down! Take him down! Prince Qi howled furiously. One after another, soldiers charged at the arsonist. Yet the young general merely wielded his trident, with mana swirling around like a roaring sea beast, blowing the heads of those who dared approach, causing a spurt of crimson and white remnants as they died. You traitor! I'll fight you to the death! Prince Qi was also in the Xuanqiang realm. He randomly picked up a long sword and charged forward, but within 5 rounds he was disarmed, a kick sent to his sternum, causing him to spurt blood and fly backwards. Clutching his chest with one hand, pointing at the young general with the other, he roared in rage. Zhang Tao! The court just granted you the title of National Guardian General with infinite prospects. Why would you commit such treachery? My name is Zhang Shun. Zhang Shun glared angrily, scolding. If only the Piyang tax were reduced, how would the court face today's disaster? Zhang Shun, Boyang. Prince Qi came to a sudden realization. You're from the same hometown as Chun the Hunter? Enough talk. Give me your life. Zhang Shun said, wielding his trident to claim a life. Clang! At the critical moment, the light of the sword flashed. The sword light in Zhou Rong's hand bloomed like a lotus. Zhang Shun parried while shouting, Zhou Rong, the defeat is evident. Won't you surrender? Traitor! Zhou Rong did not respond, his sword moves becoming more lethal. During the fight, scarlet flames quickly spread across the deck. The young master won't entertain you any longer. Zhang Shun suddenly thrust his trident, each steel blade forming a vortex of a water tornado, from a distance looking like 3 serpent heads formed from a flood, nearly impossible to defend against. Zhou Rong stumbled back several steps. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Zhang Shun dove off the Feiyun Tower ship, through the water walls of the water control array, submerging into the waters of Donghan Lake, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Everything happened too suddenly. Though it seemed like a fierce battle, it was merely a few breaths. Yet the scarlet flames had already covered most of the deck, and was still rapidly spreading. Water control array? Water control array! Prince Qi shouted out. This was the last chance. The water control array had automatic defense measures, and they had personally tested it. Even fire magic from a Qi refining perfected cultivator could be easily extinguished by the water control array imbued with spiritual power. Buzz! The array, sensing internal destruction, began to frantically rotate and activate its defenses, with waves condensed on the second-tier water wall smashing towards the deck. Chapter 795. However, to no avail. Sizzle! All the lake water imbued with spiritual power evaporated instantly upon contact with the expansive abnormal fire, turning into wisps of smoke that spread, and not only failed to extinguish the flames but also raised the temperature of the air on the deck steadily. It must be noted, the second-tier formation. In theory, it is capable of dealing with the fire of Foundation establishment cultivators. Yet in the face of the crimson abnormal fire at this moment, it was of no use. What? What kind of fire is this? Still a few feet away from the flames, Prince Chi could already feel the searing pain on his skin. It's not just the Central Army ship. Almost at the same time, the abnormal fire raged everywhere. On each Feiyun and Gaihai, soldiers from Liangshan were lighting fires. Over the surface of Donghan Lake, crimson fire dragons continuously soared into the sky, turning the dark night within a range of hundreds of miles into a scene resembling a blood-red hell. The water control array kept generating floods to extinguish the fire, but while doing so futilely, the abnormal fire rapidly devoured giant warships one after another. The water wall formed by the second-tier formation kept evaporating and thinning until the core of the formation was destroyed, leading to a complete collapse, after which the entire ship was engulfed by raging flames. Retreat! Retreat! Scatter and retreat! Prince Chi was desperately trying to salvage the situation, but unfortunately it was also in vain. The ships had long been connected with iron chains. If one or two ships caught fire, they might still have time to separate them, but now with flames rising on all sides, where was the time to cut the chains? Moreover, on Donghan Lake, the east wind was blowing, with the loss of protection from the water control array. Prince Chi and the others faced the violent east wind head-on, truly experiencing the formidable power of the 8 Gates Xuanfeng San Bone Formation. The term sinister bone refers to the 8 Gates Sun wind, which can strip a person's flesh away, leaving only eerie white bones. Gale after gale sliced through like knives cutting across their bodies. Prince Chi had to brace himself against his injuries and activate his protective Gang Chi again, feeling as if armored soldiers were hiding in the storm, wielding swords and blades against him. Beside him, one array soldier was already being cut by the east wind into wounds one after another, continuing until he was drenched in blood altogether, unable to hold onto the stake any longer and flying off like a kite with a broken string, uncertain of where he landed amidst the chaotic battlefield. Without the formation's defense, even the Feiyun tower ship was no longer impregnable. The ship began to develop numerous fragmented gaps, the sail appearing tattered as if sliced by a sharp blade, unable to advance even an inch further. As for other Mengchong battleships, small boats like Zogu, many soldiers were directly blown into the void, or fell into the lake or crashed into the sea of fire. As for the ships themselves, many were swept up by the storm and lifted into the air, snagged by layers of iron chains, suspended and swaying in the air like a kite. The devastating power of the 8 Gates Sun Wind Sun Bone Formation was vividly displayed at this moment. However, such dreadful power was merely auxiliary. This east wind was born for the abnormal fire. With the backward flow of the east wind, the Jiangnan naval forces, once a ship caught fire, would drag multiple ships with it, like a terrible plague spreading uncontrollably with the gale, turning Donghan Lake's surface from flaming in places to instantaneously becoming a sea of fire, a crimson sea of fire. Your Highness, Governor Zhou. Nieyuan leapt back onto the Central Army ship. Quick, retreat! Retreat, retreat now! Prince Chi raised a hand above his head to break the wind, following Nieyuan off the deck, jumping onto the spare Zogu small boat tied to the back of the main ship, slicing through the rope with a blade, all the while shouting, Governor Zhou, aren't you retreating yet? In the firelight, Zhou Rong held the commander's sword, staring at the distant lake where the white robe was still battling fiercely with the Ling family, unmoved. Young master, go quickly. Go quickly. Keep the Green Mountains and never worry about firewood again. The old servant and several soldiers pulled and dragged him from the Central Army ship, boarding another small boat and retreating. As they disembarked, the entire Central Army ship was half engulfed by the abnormal fire, with all contacted parts, whether wood or array flags, instantly reduced to ashes. The unbalanced ship then tilted backward, rapidly sinking with the abnormal fire, leaving most soldiers on board unable to escape, perishing amidst the whales. Such scenes kept repeating. The 400,000 Jiangnan naval forces, defeated like a landslide, in the distance over the lake. The Ling family faced another bout against the White Robe. Under the scorching bombardment of true power, Ling Ling's arm had already lost sensation. Her light body blown back over 100 feet, violently colliding against the iron-pointed spike at the bow of a sea falcon ship, tearing the whole ship apart while she coughed up blood into the lake. Lifting her sword again only to see her arm had become charred. The remaining 6 members of the Ling family were also heavily injured. Simultaneously, they suddenly realized the raging flames behind them. No one could come to their aid now. From now on, Donghan Lake will no longer appear on the map. In the Ling family's minds, the words spoken by the white robe so calmly like stating something that had already happened echoed incessantly since a cup of tea ago. The lake was rapidly drying up, booming. The east wind grew fierce. The abnormal fire burned the sky. One warship after another sank under the embrace of crimson flames. Over 100 Feiyun, sky-high tower ships ceased to exist completely, igniting the rivers and lakes. Chapter 796. Abnormal fire. It only consumes, never extinguishes. As long as there is enough fuel, it can continue to burn even underwater. The wood of the warships is fuel. The people on the warships are also fuel. Jiangnan Naval Forces have 400,000 loads of firewood. On this bleak winter night, on the east side of Chibi, within the lake, an astonishing spectacle appeared. One by one, the warships lost balance after partially burning and began to sink, continuing to burn as they descended to the lakebed. The terrifying heat continuously evaporated the lake water, turning the entire eastern lake into a massive cauldron, boiling water in an iron pot. Under the influence of the 8 Gates Xuanfeng San Bone Formation, flames splattered everywhere, and the soldiers of Jiangnan's naval forces, once stained by it, could no longer escape, either cutting off their limbs themselves or having to watch helplessly as the abnormal fire consumed their bodies. In panic, who thinks of self-amputation? Most people in extreme fear plunged into the lake, one after another, like red carp, like blooming fiery lotus flowers. 400,000 soldiers, or more than 400,000 fiery lotus flowers, blooming magnificently in the 500-li-long eastern lake, creating a cruel yet breathtaking war canvas. The lake's surface no longer had waves, but was boiling, rolling incessantly. Even without being tainted by the abnormal fire, should one unwittingly fall into the lake, they would be cooked in an instant. On the winter night's lake, the crackling of burning flames, the wails of painful struggles, the thuds of heavy objects falling into the water, and the clashing sounds of weapons and armor, could be called a mortal purgatory. On a high mountain by the shore, a scholar, fortuitously traveling there, stood at the edge of the cliff, witnessing this scene, immediately ordering his book boy to take out paper, ink and brush and began to write. Years later, a red cliff fire viewing map spread through the world. First senior sister. We seem to be unable to escape. Amidst the blazing firelight, the Ling family stood on the scorching water surface, knowing no one would come to help them, already realizing what they were about to face. Heaven has forsaken my Ling family, fourth Uncle Ling Chia shouted to the sky. They came from the sky-water continent to the eastern continent, thinking they could take the lead with no pressure. Who would have thought? With the power of the entire clan. They were actually blocked by a fire element martial artist who should have been restrained by them. Why, fellow clansmen, are you discouraged? The distressed first senior sister Ling Ling raised her long sword with her charred arm, the icy killing intent in her eyes undiminished. Since there is no way to retreat, why not risk everything in a desperate fight? The ancestors are still present. The younger generation remains within the clan. As long as we kill this person and secure the ancestor vein, our Ling family can still grow and prosper. Their demise was certain. But they absolutely couldn't let it end like this, because the central 8 scenic gods of the white robe had already opened 7. Just one step away from breaking through to the true power middle stage, and that day probably wasn't far off. So even if they were to die, they had to severely injure this person, delaying his breakthrough speed. Strengthen our Ling family. Strengthen our Ling family. On the scorching lake surface, The 7 members of the Ling family spoke in unison, then uniformly slit their necks' blood veins, the wounds so deep the bone could be seen. But their blood did not gush out. Instead, it was like streams of scarlet red flowing into their soft swords. Instantly the blood light flourished, and the sword chi surged violently, pressing aggressively. All the sword chi ultimately gathered on Ling Ling alone. The others, after sacrificing their essence blood, completely lost their lives, like puppets with broken strings, one after another plummeting into the lake. Apart from splashing layers of water, they left no trace of life. Hair disheveled and face incinerated, Ling Ling hoarsely and coldly shouted. With a mad demeanor she wielded the crimson sword. Chi river transformed from her clansman's essence blood, descending from the 9 heavens. On the lake surface, Chan Sansi stood with closed eyes in the scorching lake water, no longer wielding a gun but holding a bladeless broadsword with both hands. The heavy blade submerged in the water, the surging fire element true power further agitating the boiling of the lake water. After the myriad fire lotuses bloomed at the lakebed, this fiery eastern lake presented a mysterious phenomenon of water and fire merging. No longer simply the Gui water suppressing the fire element, both the Ling family and Chan Sansi could harness the power. Under the pull of the majestic true power, the continuously flowing scalding lake water, like magma, converged, carrying the still-burning abnormal fire. Just before the crimson sword Chi river fell, the bladeless broadsword suddenly struck upwards, like a volcanic eruption. Boom! The scalding magma and the crimson sword Chi river mutually dissolved, yet the magma was infinite and the blood river was finite. After a mere 2 breaths of stalemate, the sword Chi river, condensed from the Ling family's 7 members at the cost of their lives, vanished without a trace under the erosion of the abnormal fire. The first senior sister Ling Ling of the Ling family also was soon stained by the crimson abnormal fire during the fall into the lake, and her body quickly completely transformed into firewood, burning out during the process of evaporating the lake water. All 7 members of the Ling family were annihilated. Relying on the might of the abnormal fire, Chan Sansi, almost effortlessly, though the weapon obtained from Prince Zhan Nan suffered some degree of damage. He stood firm at a small boat, watching the sea of flames before him, knowing this chibi battle had come to an end. Gurgle! Throughout the boiling process, the eastern lake continuously evaporated, and the water level, which had surged due to incessant rainfall, began to drop visibly to the naked eye, with hundreds and thousands of ships, along with tens of thousands of firewood, as if the legendary drought demon had descended, frantically eroding the lake water until everything was engulfed. Chapter 797. So that, the Bailiang Navy didn't even need to continue charging forward. Stop advancing. They controlled the formation, anchored from a distance, watching the enemy army turn to ash and feeling the ship's position gradually descend. Only after over 70% of the enemy ships were burned did they sail small boats in for the final harvest. Almost bloodless victory. The battle raged on until dawn. This abnormal fire, unbelievably, evaporated the lake water of East Han Lake overnight, leaving even the muddy lakebed dry and cracked, as if a drought had struck, and part of the Bailiang Navy's ships found themselves stranded. The lakebed bore no trace of bodies or ship remnants, only ashes drifting with the wind and a large number of broken and damaged ice blades, attesting to the battle that had occurred here. At dawn, the metallic clouds in the sky dispersed, revealing a bright and clear scene. On the 29th of the 12th month, 77th year of the old calendar Longqing, under the binding chains of iron chain, the Bailiang army set Chibi ablaze, reducing the 40,000-strong navy of the former dynasty to ashes overnight. The abnormal fire blazed until dawn, drying up the lake and cracking the earth as if a drought demon had passed through, causing the Luoshao River to reroute, and from then on, East Han Lake ceased to exist. 2 days later, everyone, abandon ship and go ashore. Pursue the enemy to the last. The Bailiang army had long returned to the shore and, without a moment's rest, started splitting into 8 groups under the command of various generals, heading off to block the remnants of the court's forces at various key points, along a small, deserted path in the wilderness. Beside Prince Qi of the Great Shang, only a dozen or so battered soldiers remained, squatting in the forest, dust-covered, gnawing on dry rations to replenish their strength. My 40,000-strong army, the injured Prince Qi wailed almost tearfully. Gone, all gone. Your Highness need not despair. Third brother Nye Yuan consoled. The court still has a 1,000,000-strong army. As long as we escape back to the capital city, there still is a chance for revenge. Your Highness, pursuers, Chun Sansi has arrived. The scout, covered in blood, stumbled back to report, immediately causing another stir among the battered soldiers. Your Highness, quickly, Your Highness! The soldiers drew their swords, ready to give their lives to cover. No, I can't. The tattered-clothed Prince Qi lay on the ground, his pale lips trembling as he uttered weakly, I can't move anymore. General Nye, you all just go. No need to worry about me. How can that be? Without a word, Nye Yuan hoisted the prince onto his back, gritting his teeth as he dashed into the dense forest ahead. General Nye. Prince Qi coughed up fresh blood. Put me down. This will only slow you down, and perhaps none of us will escape. How can that be? Nye Yuan, while desperately fleeing, roared back. I, Nye Yuan, as a servant of the great Shang, cannot abandon the royal family for my own survival. Your Highness needn't say more. Even if I die today, I shall die before the prince. General Nye. Prince Qi was so moved that tears streamed down his face. If all were like General Nye in the great Shang dynasty, how could today's defeat happen? Stop! A harsh shout came from behind. Nye Yuan ran even faster. Struggling, Prince Qi said, General Nye, why does this voice sound somewhat familiar to me? Your Highness must have heard wrong. Saying this, Prince Qi directly jumped off a cliff with someone on his back, intending to escape via a more rugged path. And behind them, Zhou Rong was leading his old servant and a cultivator, giving their all in pursuit. Why are they running? Qiu Exen, full of bewilderment. Aren't we on the same side? Zhou Rong watched as Nye Yuan's figure vanished, understanding now that this person must be a spy hidden amongst them. From the start, he had actually harbored suspicions about this white-robed senior brother, but after numerous tests, Nye Yuan's behavior was flawless. Take, for example, the iron chain. Even if Nye Yuan hadn't suggested it, he would have done so anyway. Later, when Sima Yao almost successfully feigned surrender, this person still spoke out, making it seem unlikely for him to be a spy. Yet looking back now, it was precisely because of his presence that it further lowered his guard. This man, Nye Yuan, had been guiding all along. Now, deliberately shaking them off further verified this thought. After figuring it all out, Zhou Rong stopped fleeing and instead stood in place, smiling bitterly in rage. What a flawless plan. What a commander of enemy forces. Although it appeared he had cornered the enemy multiple times, the defeat was predestined from the start. In fact, there never was any chance of winning. Damn the heavens! So unjust! Zhou Rong raised his sword to the sky. I, Zhou Rong, have great talent. In any other place I'd be remembered in history as a master of war for the ages. Why was I born in this eastern continent? He had lain dormant for over 10 years, waiting for an opportunity to become famous throughout the land. Instead, he met with a kingdom teetering on the brink, only to face a white robe. With enormous talent, there was nowhere to apply it. After a bout of furious shouting, Zhou Rong weakly discarded his sword, coldly laughing at himself until, exhausted from laughing, he let out a long sigh. If born with glory, why was Shantru born too? Young master, victory or defeat is commonplace in military affairs. Why be so despondent? The old servant consoled. We could regroup upon return to the capital city. Exactly, brother Zhou. Shenyun Sex Qiu Xian urged. The pursuers are almost upon us. Yet, no matter what they said, Zhou Rong just stood there, unwilling to take another step. The spiritual heart is shattered. No saving it. Qiu Xian shook his head, no longer bothering, and was about to escape on his flying sword. but barely having covered a few feet, a fire dragon came at him, instantly shattering the defensive magic he had cast, piercing him through and killing him instantly. Chapter 798. Chun Sansi, dressed in a white robe, rode the white swan horse, appearing from the winding path ahead, blocking the retreat. "Young master, quickly leave!" The old servant of the Zhou family charged forward without hesitation, naturally shot down by an arrow. "Chun Sansi." Zhou Rong pointed at him, sneering, "I've lost, but you won't win either. While you were entangled with me at Chibi, Dan Liangqing has already amassed a 1,000,000-strong army outside the capital city, coupled with the second-tier array and the Ling family's ancestor. No matter your abilities, you won't be able to pull them off." He knew, in this world, no one could rival White Robe in strategy. The only way to defeat him was through one method. That is, using power to break through, forcing him to face someone stronger head-on, forcing him to attack recklessly. "You don't need to worry about that, Zhou Lang." Chun Sansi watched Wei Xian and Cui Zhichen arriving from the distance, calmly ordered, "Send Lord Zhou on his way." The flying sword flashed. Zhou Rong's head fell. Within 5 days, the battle at Chibi concluded. The court's 40,000 troops from Jiangnan, with rough estimates showing over 30,000 dead, more than 50,000 captured, and only 2,000 to 3,000 scattered and vanished, with losses to provisions and supplies uncountable. In contrast, the new dynasty's army only lost 15,000 troops and a few warships, achieving a complete victory. Peizhou Prefecture. Inside a mansion in the city, the Minister of Ministry of Industry, originating from a prestigious family, Fan Shirkuei, was conspiring a significant matter with several officials. The city is about to fall. Victory at Chibi is hopeless. General Zhang Jingwu sent a letter from outside the city. "If we behead Ming Qingfeng and Fang Qingyun and capture King Jin alive to surrender, the court will overlook our past actions. Now let's see what Brother Shangguan has to say." Most members of the sects and families were fighting at Chibi, with a small portion here. Shangguan Haichong was undoubtedly the eldest and most senior among them, and the only martial saint in the city, making it impossible to proceed without him. "Let's go and see what Brother Shangguan has to say." Fan Shirkuei led the crowd to the adjacent mansion, only to find Shangguan Haichong clutching a wine jar, deeply asleep, no matter how they called him. "Stop calling," a military officer said. "He's drinking drunk, saint. He won't wake up for a while. This wine is precious, able to strengthen a martial saint's body. But if not cultivated in time, it will make one deeply drunk for at least 2 days under its special effects." "Dear lords," Shangguan Haichong's servant explained, "my master's recent troubles have kept him awake and restless for days. Thus he sought solace in wine." "Enough," Fan Shirkuei decisively stated. "We are enough." With the martial saint absent, the two mysterious phenomena could swiftly resolve everything unnoticed. Can't delay any longer. Each day delayed, their surrender became more worthless. A group of people charged towards the largest mansion in the city. After they left, Shangguan Haichong suddenly opened his eyes, perfectly sober, with no signs of drunkenness. He instructed the servant, "Keep an eye on them and report any developments to me." "Yes." The servant obeyed and left. "These fellows are too impatient." Shangguan Haichong squinted. The defeat at Chibi was certain. But Chun Sansi and Cui Zhichen might not necessarily die. Such haste to revolt might lead to retaliation. Who will care for them then? Thus, Shangguan Haichong chose to play dumb. If their plan succeeds, being the head of the sect, he could claim allegiance, and even if those from Seeking Immortal Tower and Guiyuan sect sought revenge, he would be untouched. Inside the temporary palace, the legitimate Emperor Chao Huan and civil and military officials were trapped here for long, with provisions cut off 3 days ago, and surrounding pursuers tightening the final encirclement, visible even from atop the city walls. Chao Huan sat slumped in a stag-antler chair, despondent. The minister's expressions were likewise grim. According to the timeline, the battle at Chibi should have ended. As for the outcome, obvious. I vowed to support the common people, uphold the dynasty, and restore the flourishing era of dashing. But why have I fallen to such a fate? In just a few days, the legitimate Emperor Chao Huan's already graying hair had turned entirely white. His face aged a decade, worn and haggard, full of worry, virtually seeming at the brink of death. The Minister of War Ming Qingfeng restlessly paced in the courtyard, awaiting the final news. Bang! Suddenly, the courtyard gate was kicked open. Fan Shirkuei led a group of scarlet-robed officials, marching in wielding swords. Fan Shirkuei? The Minister of War Ming Qingfeng's eyes widened in fury. What are you trying to do? Fan Shirkuei said with a blank expression. This place is unsafe. Escort His Majesty out of the city. You're staging a coup? Ming Qingfeng cursed, grabbing an azure dragon crescent blade from the courtyard, leading several imperial guards to battle them. The commotion quickly attracted Chao Huan, who was horrified. Ming Qingfeng was soon outmatched and struck down heavily injured. How dare you rebel? At the critical moment, Tower Master Cui Zhichen arrived with King Yan Chaozhi, descending from the sky, slicing off Fan Shirkuei's arm effortlessly, leaving him wailing in pain on the ground. The remaining officials dropped their weapons in fear and fled, only to be blocked by two other cultivators from Guiyuan sect. Chapter 799. Immortal Master Cui. 20th Brother. Chao Huan hurried forward to greet them, his voice trembling uncontrollably. Good, good. It's good that you've returned alive. Where is Chen Aiqing? Is he still alive? Are we to flee to Beiliang now? How many troops are left? The Minister of War, Ming Qingfeng, struggled to his feet in a disheveled state and said mournfully, Could it be that the entire army has really been wiped out? What are you talking about? Cui Zhichen frowned and said, Chun Sansi set Chibi ablaze days ago, utterly defeating the enemy army. The 400,000-strong naval forces of Jiangnan have vanished into thin air. Vanished into thin air. Utterly defeated the enemy army? Chao Huan was shocked. Capital city. Zhongjua Hall. Qian the hunter was only capable of such petty tricks. Regent King Qin said coldly. Sending troops through Ziwu Valley, it sounded impressive. But in the end, didn't he just scurry back to Chibi to meet his death? This person truly deserves death. The Minister of Revenue, Tian Guang, cursed. Before losing the battle, he even destroyed our army's massive supplies. The Assistant Minister of War, staring at the sand table, said, After Chibi, Chun Sansi might not be dead. I believe we should send the Ling family's ancestor and immortal Master Dan Liangqing personally to hunt him down. Let's calculate the days. Yan Maoxing stroked his beard and said, The battle report from Chibi should have arrived by now, right? As everyone awaited with great anticipation. Finally, there came some movement from outside. Prince Qi. His Highness Prince Qi has returned. Upon hearing the words, everyone crowded outside the hall. They saw a cultivator steering a flying boat rapidly approaching with two individuals on it. None other than Prince Qi and Nye Yuan. But their appearance was completely contrary to their expectations. Both looked disheveled, and Prince Qi was severely wounded, his face pale as though on the brink of death. Witnessing this scene, everyone present was stunned, and their hearts sank, feeling as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them, realizing that disaster likely loomed. Outside the hall, everything fell into a dead silence. No one dared to speak for a long time, fearing to acknowledge this catastrophic news, as if by staying silent, the event would be as though it never happened. How could it be? How could Chibi be lost? The civil and military officials looked at each other in disbelief amidst the deathly silence. Not long ago, the battle report had clearly stated that the 200,000 rebel army had been driven into the East Han Lake, their retreat blocked, leaving them with no ability to resist. Yet, in the blink of an eye, Prince Qi and General Nye Yuan returned in such a state. This grim news was nothing short of earth-shattering for everyone. In the Imperial Palace Square, nobody paid heed to the gravely wounded Prince Qi and the dust-covered Nye Yuan. They just stood there, hesitating for half a cup of tea's time, not daring to speak up. Ultimately, King Qin mustered his courage and proactively asked, "Eighth brother, did you let them escape?" He was still unwilling to believe. With a second-tier formation and forces capable of suppressing Chen Sansi, could the elite naval forces of the court really have been so soundly defeated? So he clung to a glimmer of hope. Could it have been a minor loss, with Chen Sansi merely fleeing with his people? To them, this was actually good news. After all, as long as they weren't advancing on the capital city, it was manageable. However, fourth brother, Prince Qi lay on the ground, weeping bitterly. "It's over, all over. The 400,000-strong army was entirely consumed by fire. Your Highness, this subordinate is incompetent." Nie Yuan collapsed with a thud to his knees. "The entire army has been wiped out. All the warships burned. Veteran General Yan Hongyuan has fallen. Veteran General Zheng Ran is missing. All the Ling family's martial cultivators are dead. And Governor Zhou too is feared to be lost. Complete annihilation." The hearts of the civil and military officials, which were hanging at the edge, were finally struck violently at this moment. How could it? How could it be? King Qin paced frantically, repeatedly slapping his hand. Weren't we just a step away from annihilating the enemy forces? Even if we didn't win, it shouldn't have been complete annihilation. Your Highness, it's the Liangshan bandits. Nie Yuan then recounted the details of the defeat. Ah! In his fury, King Qin punched and collapsed a stone pillar in the square. Bandits, all bandits. When did Chen the Hunter collude with this group? Chen Sansi's maneuvers through Ziwu Valley were a ruse. His true intention was to incinerate the supplies, forcing us to transport food from Mongshan Prefecture, thereby inviting wolves into the fold. The officials felt chills down their spines, because upon careful reflection, it appeared that although they seemed at an advantage at every turn, they had already lost from the start. This battle, how could it be fought any further? It's terrible. Chen Sansi is going to attack the capital city. After the defeat at Chibi, more than half of the kingdom was about to fall into rebel hands. The true court was left with only the surroundings of the capital city, the adjacent 3 states, a small corner. Meanwhile, the rebel army's supply lines and official roads were completely open. Next, Chen Sansi would lead the rebel army straight towards the capital city. Fei River. It was the court's last line of defense. Once the enemy crossed the Fei River and suffered another defeat, the court would have no defense left, no troops to mobilize. The Great Qing dynasty would fall. From the uprising in Liangzhou until now, less than 2 years had passed. Yet it had turned from quelling a rebellion into the defense of the capital city. The atmosphere in the capital city became instantly heavy. Almost everyone felt suffocated. Where is immortal Master Dan Liangqing? Quickly, hurry and summon the immortal master. From today, no officials are allowed to return home. Deliberate day and night on strategies to defeat the enemy. Until the end of the great battle. This is the last battle. The 300-year-long reign of the Great Shang has reached its last moments of life and death. Chapter 800. Throwing a whip to stop the flow. Capital Chang'an. Zhongjua Hall. A brilliant series of open schemes. Upon receiving the news, Dan Liangqing came to the imperial palace, meticulously browsed the war reports, and casually set them on fire above a candle, watching them burn to ashes. He was originally a true disciple from Shangyun sect's Golden Wing Peak, and one of the few second-tier array masters in the sect, distinct from other cultivators who ventured to the eastern continent for resources. Dan Liangqing did not come for cultivation resources. As a true disciple, he had long secured a spot for the Foundation Establishment Pill. This time he came. The most crucial reason was to serve the sect and second, to avenge a friend. Han Xiang had been his chess companion for over a decade. Though they had no life and death bond, merely for the sake of friendship, he would make every effort, if only to have words to say at the gravesite in the future. Immortal Master Dan, Minister of Personnel Ming Chun, said, "What should the court do next?" Indeed, the civil and military officials fell into a swirl of panic. In the Central Plains, the court now only controlled 3 state territories. Once the rebel army crossed the Fei River, they could directly strike Chang'an. Why panic? Dan Liangqing's cold voice carried calmness. As he spoke word by word, Zhou Lang did not lose. Do not be misguided by appearances. The great momentum still favors us. Did not lose? Yan Maoxing was stunned for a moment, then said, Is Immortal Master Dan speaking nonsense? The 40,000 troops are reduced to ashes. That doesn't count as losing. It is true that the 40,000 troops were all lost, but they bought us time. Dan Liangqing pointed his bamboo flute at the sand table. While Chun Sansi was calculating how to win the battle at Chibi, the court's 1,000,000 troops have already assembled. 1,000,000 soldiers. What a grand number. Simply allocating all weapons and armors from each state's arsenal demanded immense manpower, resources, and time, not to mention the subsequent personnel and provisions. The original intent of the Battle of Chibi was to take initiative, forcing the rebels to fight at Chibi, while the court seized the opportunity to complete the mobilization of troops. Though Chibi was defeated, the objective had been achieved. Over 1,000,000 troops from 18 states have been deployed around the capital's 3 states. This is an ultimate battle. Years of warfare, shortages of provisions. This time, by concentrating such a large number of troops in 3 states, instead of extending the battle line to fight simultaneously on multiple fronts, the aim is to transport supplies through a single optimal route, minimizing losses. Even so, the daily consumption of this 1,000,000-strong army is an incalculable figure. After this battle, regardless of victory or defeat, the national power of the Dashing dynasty will be thoroughly exhausted, akin to draining the pond to catch fish. Fortunately, not just Dashing, but Nansu, Dongqing, and West Qi are in a similar state, having long depleted their treasuries. If not for the pressure from the Immortal Masters, the eastern continent would have descended into chaos. Shang, Qing, Qi, Su, who knows how many new state titles may emerge, how many heroes will rise. Because there are Immortal Masters and high-realm martial artists pressing on. This battle, even if it drains the pond to catch fish, doesn't matter. As long as we can win. In fact, only Dan Liangqing knew. From the start, Zhou Lang ventured to Chibi with a resolve to die and buy time. Thus he declared, having Zhou Lang in Dashing is indeed Dashing's fortune. However, during this life-and-death struggle, the white robe made Zhou Rong mistakenly believe he would win. That was precisely the terrifying aspect of the white robe. He could command you. Moreover, he led you by the nose without you realizing it. For this reason, retreat and defense are not the sole options. They must continue the previous strategy, choosing the battlefield themselves, always keeping the initiative in their hands. The Battle of Chibi could be said to be the prerequisite to deploying millions of troops. Now the prerequisites are met, next comes the ultimate national decisive battle. Does Immortal Master Dan mean that we should continue fighting? Upon understanding Dan Liangqing's intentions, the civil and military officials felt a chill of fear. Immortal Master Dan, Minister of Personnel Yin Mingchun cautiously said, since we have sufficient troops, why not defend the passes? I support Immortal Master Dan. Regent King Qin proclaimed in a rough voice. The Battle of Chibi was in preparation for what's to come. If we show cowardice now, Zhou Lang and the 40,000 troops will have died in vain. That Chan the Hunter is strong in schemes and plots. So we won't play his game. We'll crush him with sheer force. Zhu Ming. Calculate the final forces involved on both sides. The 6 ministry positions cannot remain vacant. After Zhou Rong's death, the court could only promote new talents. Zhu Ming, like Zhou Rong, was a descendant of the founding 12 generals of Qilin Pavilion. Though lacking great talent, he had been positioned in the Ministry of War as vice minister for years, at least not dragging behind. Moreover, under the present circumstances, only by heavily utilizing fallen nobility could the court better stabilize the hearts of scholars across the land. Dashing is still the same Dashing. Report to your highness. Zhu Ming had already completed his calculations. Speaking confidently, The rebel forces seemingly occupy more than 20 states, a grand momentum, but their actions are rushed. Most places have unstable foundations and still require forces to suppress. The final forces that can be deployed against our army certainly won't exceed 300,000. Your servant estimates it will likely range from 200,000 to 250,000. Did you all hear? Prince Qin scanned the civil and military officials in the hall, his voice resounding to bolster morale. The rebels are a mere 200,000, while our court has 1 million troops in armor.